Down by the sandy beaches of Montauk, Long Island, sits a crumbling military base that's been officially abandoned since 1981. However, according to local legend, this rusty satellite dish sits above a vast network of underground tunnels and laboratories where government scientists still conduct mind control experiments on children that they kidnap from the local town. See, your government is lying to you, and they're hiding their deepest, darkest secrets in covert locations far away from the public eye. Today we're going to unearth these secrets and explore where they're hidden, looking at alien warehouses, human testing, and North Korean missiles as we put on our tinfoil hats and sneak into the most secret bases governments don't want you knowing about. Camp Hero. For those of you who don't know, Stranger Things is a show on Netflix about a little bald girl who eats waffles and moves stuff with her mind. The show is science fiction, but incredibly it's based on a real place called Montauk, a sleepy hamlet in Long Island with sandy beaches, an old-fashioned lighthouse, and an abandoned government facility that's haunted the locals for generations. Cute. See, Montauk used to be home to Camp Hero, a military base that was created to protect America from invasion during World War II. After the war finished, the base was officially used to scan for Soviet missiles during the Cold War. But some locals believe that this is a cover-up and the American government actually used Camp Hero to conduct research into mind control and telekinesis as part of a top-secret program called the Montauk Project. Residents claim that the government hired Germany's top scientists to work on the project, and they carried out their tests by kidnapping local children to experiment on. Now, full disclosure, this theory originates from a science fiction book called The Montauk Project: Experiments in Time that was written by an author and conspiracy theorist called Preston Nichols in 1992. However, lots of Montauk locals have stated that sections of Nichols' insane book are true, and some of them claim they were personally subjected to experimentation in Camp Hero when they were children. Like locals Joe Lafreno and James Bruce, who said they were tested on with electricity, radio waves, and psychedelic substances, as the scientists attempted to brainwash them and give them superhuman powers. It isn't clear if these tests were successful. Neither Joe nor Bruce exhibited Marvel-esque abilities, but lots of conspiracy theorists believe the experimentation continued until 1981, when the military packed up and decommissioned Camp Hero. Once the base was closed, the U.S. government allowed New York State to build a new state park in the surrounding area, but interestingly, the deed allegedly ruled that the state would only own everything on the surface of the property, implying that the U.S. government would continue to own the underground portions of the base. Totally suspicious. Today, all that's left of Camp Hero is an abandoned satellite dish and a series of tunnels that have been sealed off with concrete. However, some people believe there's an underground base there that's still used by the government. These theories garnered international attention in 2008 when the body of a mysterious creature washed up on a nearby beach. It was dubbed the Montauk Monster, and conspiracy theorists immediately claimed it was a mutant animal that the government had created in the underground base. Local scientists soon debunked this theory, though, as their tests proved that the so-called Montauk Monster was just the body of a raccoon that had decomposed in the ocean. Still, some avid conspiracy theorists believe these scientists were lying to protect the government. They say government scientists are still present in the sealed-off tunnels underneath Camp Hero, conducting experiments on animals and children far away from the public eye. Now for something a little less sinister. Last year, loyal fans know Bartholomew recently debuted in plushie form. So this year, we're introducing him as a ball. He's rounder, squishier, and more huggable than ever. We've taken all of Bartholomew's charm and rolled it into a plump sphere. But he's already earned consistent 5-star reviews, so you can trust the quality is high. But hurry, we've only made 500 of them, and last time he sold out in less than a week. Best of all, you can get a 33% discount on different bundles of our best items this Black Friday week. That's a third off, a total bargain. All items are designed with love by us, and every purchase you make directly funds what we do here on this channel. So hurry up and don't miss out on these savings. Click the link on screen or in the description to purchase this bundle of joy while stocks last. Weather control. Let's move from mind experiments to weather control as we check out another American base that's wrapped up in a dark sci-fi-like conspiracy. The HAARP research station in Alaska is home to a gigantic radio transmitter that's officially used to analyze a section of the Earth's upper atmosphere called the ionosphere. The transmitter is so powerful that its radio waves can heat the ionosphere, which allows scientists to understand how it naturally reacts to the heat of the sun. Or at least that's what they want you to believe. See, some conspiracy theorists think this is a cover-up, and the way that the transmitter actually interacts with the atmosphere allows the government to control the weather and send natural disasters to other parts of the world. The former governor of Minnesota, Jesse Ventura, released a conspiracy theory-themed TV show in 2009 in which he claimed that the base was used to experiment with weather control. Furthermore, when Haiti was hit by a catastrophic earthquake in 2010, the former president of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, claimed that America used HAARP to create the natural disaster. It's worth noting that Ventura was governor in 1998, but he's actually best known for his stint as a WWF wrestler in the 70s, so he knows more about power bombs than atmospheric science. Furthermore, Hugo Chavez had a strong dislike for America. He famously argued that destroying the U.S. empire would save the human race, as well as claiming that the U.S. had used a secret weapon to give him terminal cancer. So they're not the most reliable sources. Still, their support made the theory surrounding HAARP increasingly popular, until 2015 that is, when the military closed the base and handed it over to the University of Alaska's research department. Now, giving a weather-altering weapon to a college would be pretty foolhardy, but unsurprisingly, it didn't suddenly start raining cheap beer over Alaska. Instead, once the university took control of HAARP, they started giving public tours of the facility to prove that their equipment was totally harmless. Their scientists clearly explained that while the transmitter can affect the atmosphere, it isn't nearly powerful enough to affect the weather, and modern science still isn't advanced enough to create man-made natural disasters. So the theories are all science fiction, and unfortunately, my dream of using HAARP to make it rain over my ex's house will have to wait. The President's Bunker. In a world plagued with global warming, nuclear weapons, and TikTok, it feels like the apocalypse could come at any moment. However, the American government don't plan on dying like us common folk, and they have a plan for the end of the world. In 1951, the U.S. was on the brink of nuclear war with the USSR, so President Truman decided to build a top-secret relocation site for the Pentagon that the government could retreat to in the event of an attack. The result was the Raven Rock Mountain Complex, a giant military base hidden inside a hollowed-out mountain in Pennsylvania. The base is essentially an underground city, featuring a power plant, a police department, and a bar, as well as several giant three-story buildings for accommodation. Some locals were aware of the base's existence, but the general public didn't know what Raven Rock was used for until 2011, when an American journalist called Garrett Graff accidentally uncovered the secret. Graff was working for a magazine called The Washingtonian when one of his colleagues found a strange government ID card on the floor of a parking garage. The card had directions printed on the back that led to a road that disappeared into the side of a mountain. So intrigued, Graff started looking into it. After digging through the archives of several presidential libraries, he found declassified government documents about secret bases which had been revealed to the public. These documents revealed the purpose and history of Raven Rock and several other similar bunkers like the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, a nuclear bunker in Colorado that's operated by the North American Aerospace Defense Command. NORAD is a military organization that was originally created to detect missiles or aircraft that may be attacking America. Most of their operations are at the nearby Peterson Air Force Base, but the Cheyenne Mountain Complex is built 2,500 feet underground, so in the event of a nuclear attack, NORAD's staff can retreat to the bunker to continue their work. As Graff uncovered more information about these compounds, he wrote a book about them, making their purpose and existence public knowledge. Today, these bases are fully operational, and they're still part of the government's plan for the apocalypse. Raven Rock is reportedly staffed with at least 100 soldiers, but access to the public is strictly prohibited. So when the world ends, we'll have to fend for ourselves in the wasteland while the American government lives it up in Raven Rock. Subterranean submarines. Let's leave the States and go on vacation to Hainan, a tropical Chinese island with sandy beaches and luxury resorts. Hainan is a tourist's paradise, but as they sip their cocktails and relax in the sun, they're unwittingly lounging above a top-secret submarine base, hidden in the caves underneath the island. See, Hainan is also home to Yulin Naval Base, a giant military facility that's known to house aircraft carriers and warships. This is public knowledge, but in 2020, a commercial satellite flying over Hainan captured images of a Chinese submarine entering a tunnel underneath the base, revealing a top-secret area that's used to store nuclear subs. According to a former U.S. Defense Department official called Drew Thompson, China hide lots of their military assets underground to keep them away from prying eyes. However, this top-secret location was accidentally uncovered when a satellite happened to fly over the area at the exact moment that the submarine dove into its entrance. When images of the incident were released online, military experts identified the sub as a Type 093 submarine. This 7,000-ton sub can be fitted with torpedoes and cruise missiles, and experts believe that the underground base also houses Type 094 submarines that are dedicated to launching nuclear missiles. So if nuclear war does break out, the tourists at Hainan might get a front row seat of a Chinese submarine launching a nuke and the enemy's response. Well, that's one way to get a tan. Hangar 18. America has a long-standing history of UFO sightings, and in 1947, the U.S. Air Force made the shocking announcement that they'd recovered a flying disc crashed in a field in Roswell, New Mexico. After a brief investigation, the government announced that the UFO was a crashed weather balloon. But some people were convinced that it was actually an extraterrestrial ship, and the Roswell incident soon became one of the most notorious alien conspiracy theories in America. In the 1970s, public interest was renewed when the family of an ex-military pilot called Pappy Henderson claimed that the UFO was actually an alien spaceship that he'd helped to transport from Roswell to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. Apparently, Pappy had transported the spaceship and several alien bodies to a secret location called Hangar 18, where they were stored in a special area called the Blue Room. The government explicitly denied this, and they claimed that Hangar 18 and the Blue Room didn't exist at all. However, the conspiracy theory never died, and UFOologists have spent decades trying to prove that the Roswell crash was extraterrestrial in nature. One interesting theory emerged online in 2012 when declassified documents from the 50s revealed that Wright-Patterson was used to secretly test a new flying vehicle that closely resembles a flying saucer. The Avrocar was a new type of fighter jet that was supposed to be able to fly 10,000 feet in the air while moving at supersonic speeds. The aircraft was fitted with one central jet engine, but unfortunately, the design failed and the prototypes were only able to get a few feet off the ground. It seemed like the concept was too advanced for America's technology at the time, leading to online theories that the Avrocar was built in Hangar 18 as an attempt to recreate advanced alien technology that the government captured at Roswell. Of course, it's worth noting that while the Avrocar was tested at Wright-Patterson, it was initially designed in Canada in 1952, far away from the Roswell crash site. Furthermore, inventors have been attempting to develop flying saucer-style aircraft since the 1930s, so the Avrocar wasn't an entirely new concept either. Still, the fact that the futuristic Avrocar and the Roswell incident can be linked to the same airbase is pretty suspicious, right? It's hardly surprising that conspiracy theorists have got their tinfoil hats in a twist. Russian Roswell. The Roswell incident is incredibly famous in America, but in Russia, lots of their extraterrestrial conspiracy theories revolve around a military base called Kapustin Yar. When the Russian government built a base in the 1940s, they evacuated an entire village called Zytkar and relocated the locals so they could construct a facility on their land. Once built, Kapustin Yar acted as the center for the Soviet space program during the Cold War and a test site for Russia's growing arsenal of nuclear weapons. Lots of prominent conspiracies stem from this top-secret base, and one of the most popular supposedly happened in 1948 when Kapustin Yar's radar operators detected a strange cigar-shaped object flying overhead. They dispatched a fighter jet to investigate, but as it approached the UFO, an unknown problem caused both aircraft to crash to the ground. The wreckage was then promptly gathered by the military and hidden inside one of Kapustin Yar's hangars, never to be seen again. When the U.S. military discovered Kapustin Yar in 1953, the base's existence became public knowledge and accounts of the UFO encounters started to spread across the world. Before long, Kapustin Yar became known as the Russian Roswell, and UFOologists like David Wilcock argue that the cigar-shaped object was an alien spaceship that Russia is still hiding from the public eye. They believe the Soviets studied the spaceship to develop their space program and even built the world's first satellite, Sputnik 1, from reverse engineering it. Indeed, when Sputnik 1 was launched in 1957, its technology was deemed so advanced that the American government created NASA to compete with it. However, it's important to note that Sputnik 1's tech is incredibly outdated today, so it's unlikely to have come from an advanced alien species. Furthermore, the Russian government has never acknowledged the rumors about Kapustin Yar, so there's no concrete evidence the UFO encounter ever actually happened. Of course, even if there's truth to the rumors, Kapustin Yar is still a heavily guarded rocket launch complex, so the base's secrets are unlikely to be revealed anytime soon, and we may never know the true nature of the UFO that supposedly took down one of the USSR's fighter jets. What do you think? Let me know down below. Kim's secrets. Every country has secrets, but no government is more mysterious than the reclusive hermit nation of North Korea. Like an angsty teenager, Kim Jong-un likes to keep himself hidden from the outside world, and satellites have proven that North Korea is full of underground airfields with runways coming out of the country's vast mountain ranges. Other countries have built air bases in caves like the abandoned Zilhava Air Base in modern-day Croatia. However, North Korea's also contained their missile silos, which hold the country's estimated supply of 50 nuclear warheads. This makes Lil Kim's man caves pretty threatening, but the Supreme Leader doesn't keep all his secrets hidden underground. Kim lives a lavish lifestyle, spending an estimated $600 million a year on luxury items like private jets and terrible haircuts. In 2006, the United Nations tried to curb the former leader Kim Jong-il's spending by both banning companies from selling luxury items to the states and accepting North Korean currency. However, Il responded by creating a new organization inside the Workers' Party building in Pyongyang known as Room 39. The secretive organization is tasked with illegally obtaining foreign currency to buy luxury items and smuggle them into Korea. They operate by counterfeiting $100 bills and producing narcotics to sell abroad. In 2001, they circulated a whopping $114 million in fake bills, while in 2003, Australia seized a North Korean shipment of illegal narcotics worth $27 million. Recently, Room 39 has started to utilize cybercrime too. In 2016, they were caught attempting to hack the New York Federal Reserve and steal $1 billion. These methods bring in between $500 million to $1 billion a year, and the dirty money is used almost solely to fund Kim Jong-un's lavish lifestyle. This means that the secret base allows the dictator to stay rich in a country that's cut off from the rest of the world as he spends millions of dollars on sports cars and hair gel, instead of food for his country's starving population. What a glorious leader. The frozen base. We often view conspiracy theorists as neckbeards in their mom's basements ranting about vaccines online. However, conspiracy theories have been around far longer than Cheetos and 4chan. And one of the most shocking allegations of a government cover-up came after the end of World War II. The story starts in 1938 when the German government conducted a top-secret expedition to establish a whaling base on Antarctica. They intended on colonizing an area they named New Swabia, but when the Second World War broke out, Germany abandoned these plans to focus on the war effort, at least officially. See, some people believe they did build an Antarctic compound called Base 211, which they used to shoot down enemy planes during World War II. According to them, at the end of the war, several high-ranking German officials, including the nation's infamous mustache leader, faked their deaths, traveled to Antarctica in a submarine, and hid out at Base 211 for several years. In 1947, the U.S. Navy carried out a real operation called High Jump, which officially involved sending a military force to Antarctica to build a new research base. However, the conspiracy theorists believe the operation was actually a failed invasion of Base 211, where the U.S. was beaten back by the German forces. After this, the base supposedly grew until the late 1950s when the U.S. military finally destroyed it with a nuclear bomb, marking the true end of World War II. These theories were incredibly popular, and author Ladislas Szabo wrote an account of the events in 1947 that was published in several major international newspapers. Today, however, the theory can be debunked with a combination of modern satellite technology and further information about Operation High Jump. Firstly, High Jump wasn't a secret mission. 11 journalists were present throughout the entire operation to give updates to the media. Also, the American military didn't actually go to the German-claimed region of New Swabia during the operation, so even if Base 211 did exist, they wouldn't have encountered it. Finally, and most damningly, the entirety of Antarctica has now been mapped by scientists and satellites, and guess what? None of them have found any evidence of the destroyed base or the aftermath of a nuclear explosion on the continent. There's no way that a detonation could have occurred without leaving a trace, which proves that this theory is wholly false. Damn, there go my dreams of mutant radioactive penguins. Metro 2. The subway is a haven for rats, litter, and terrible street performers. So when Moscow's Metro 1 system was built in 1934, Stalin's government decided to secretly build their own private subway alongside the civilian one. This top-secret system is called Metro 2, and it supposedly connects the president's residence in the Kremlin to the Vnukovo government airport, so the president can escape Moscow and flee the country if it's attacked. Some experts have also theorized that the system links to a rumored underground city in the nearby Ramenki district that's supposedly able to house 15,000 people for 30 years in the event of a nuclear attack. Now, the Russian government has never confirmed the existence of the tunnels, but in 1991 the U.S. Department of Defense released a report in which they claimed Metro 2 was real, alongside a diagram of the system superimposed over a map of the city. This evidence is pretty convincing, but the U.S. government aren't exactly ones to talk. Similar escape tunnels exist underneath the White House. Yep, the Washington Post reported that in 1941, President Roosevelt built a short tunnel from the White House to a secret vault beneath the nearby Treasury building. The tunnel was initially created as an air raid shelter during World War II, but after the war, government officials continued to use it to sneak in and out of the White House undetected. This tunnel definitely exists, but it's theorized that there are many more, including one that runs to the building's south lawn. What's more, in 1980, President Truman's daughter Margaret wrote a murder mystery novel involving a secret tunnel running from the White House to the nearby Lafayette Park. Of course, Margaret's novel was a work of fiction, but if anybody would know the truth, it'd be the daughter of a former president. Bikini Atoll. Bikini Atoll is a beautiful isolated coral reef in the Pacific Ocean, consisting of 23 islands gathered around a large lagoon. Only it harbors a dark past, one the U.S. government would rather nobody knew about. In 1946, the U.S. military decided it was the perfect place to see how nuclear weapons act when they're detonated in the ocean. So they forced Bikini's population of 167 people to move to another atoll before building a series of bunkers and transforming their former home into a pseudo-base and testing site. In total, they performed 23 nuclear tests, leaving giant craters in the seabed and flooding it with dangerous radiation. During one of these, a miscalculation meant that one nuclear bomb yielded a jaw-dropping 15 megatons, making it around 1,000 times more powerful than the bombs used on Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the end of World War II. This is still the most powerful nuclear test ever performed by the USA, and the explosion left a mile-wide crater in the reef and completely vaporized 3 of the atoll's islands. Even worse, radioactive ash from the blast rained down on a Japanese fishing boat 80 miles away, which gave 23 fishermen radiation sickness and took 1 life. But the fallout from the test wasn't all nuclear. See, when the U.S. government relocated Bikini Atoll's indigenous population, they moved them to Rongerik Atoll, which was 1/6 of the size and had a terrible food and water supply. As a result, after just a couple of years, they were undernourished and close to starving. Seeing this, the U.S. responded by moving them once more, this time to Kili Island, a tiny area of land with very limited resources. Here, despite the poor conditions, the majority of the Bikinians would stay. Today, around 400 residents still live on Kili Island in cinder block houses, surviving on imports of food. As for Bikini Atoll, it's totally inhospitable. When the nuclear tests were finally complete, some Bikinians went back to their homeland, but before long they started experiencing radiation sickness, and it became clear the once idyllic atoll was no place for human life. America's now abandoned base there serves as a dark reminder of the time that they kicked a population out of their home, turned it into a nuclear wasteland, and prevented them from ever returning. The Farm. In the movies, spies spend most of their time driving sports cars and slamming martinis. However, life as a secret agent isn't a walk in the park, and if you want to become a spy in America, you have to start by undergoing some intense training at a top secret facility called The Farm. This farm isn't a muddy field full of cows. It's actually a CIA training camp hidden inside a large military base in Virginia called Camp Peary. The farm's existence hasn't been officially acknowledged by the U.S. government. However, several retired CIA agents like Amaryllis Fox Kennedy and Douglas London have openly talked about the base, while revealing some aspects of its intense training regime. Apparently, the training takes place in a fake town set in a fictional county called Vertania, with its own fake U.S. embassy, town square, and even a mock news channel. In this setting, the trainees have to carry out missions that involve spying on the fake Vertanians that are played by CIA operatives. These missions generally involve holding covert meetings and planting bugs, but they also get to indulge in some more action-packed James Bond-style training, like gunfighting, parachuting, and operating speedboats. Unsurprisingly, the farm is home to some more controversial training practices too. A former agent called Bill Wagner has revealed that in the 1970s, the CIA held a 3-week interrogation course at the farm where trainees were taught how to withstand and perform special interrogation techniques, if you catch my drift. The exercise was considered the farm's premier course, so places were highly coveted but limited. As a result, if you agreed to play the role of a captive, you were guaranteed a space as an interrogator next time the course was held. This caused a lot of trainees to sign up, and when they did, they were subjected mercilessly to all kinds of horrors. Some operatives reported enduring sleep deprivation, having to eat poisoned food, and taking part in mock executions. Others have claimed they were waterboarded. According to Wagner, around 10% of trainees dropped out of the exercise, which actually seems pretty low, all things considered. Wagner claims that the CIA dropped the course in the 70s, but most of the training methods used by the farm are still shrouded in mystery, and it isn't clear exactly what currently goes on behind its barbed wire fences. Still, after 6 months of training at the facility, you can graduate as a fully fledged CIA operative, allowing you to be placed undercover and infiltrate a criminal gang, a corrupt government, or assume the identity of a handsome YouTuber who creates hilarious content. Great British Stakeout. With its old-timey farms and medieval churches, the British countryside is like a window to the past. However, if you drive through the rolling hills of North Yorkshire, you'll come across something incredibly futuristic. A military base that's the largest electronic monitoring station in the world. Despite this, it's shrouded in secrecy. Royal Air Force Menwith Hill is a satellite ground station that the British and American governments can use to tap into phone calls, messages, and internet searches that are made anywhere on the planet. The base contains 37 radio antennas hidden inside golf ball-shaped structures called radomes. These antennas are connected to satellites that pick up radio waves from the ground and send them back to Menwith Hill, allowing the base to intercept radio-based communications like cell phone calls and Wi-Fi searches. The base was originally built in 1954 to monitor the USSR during the Cold War, but today it's primarily used to investigate terrorist groups by America's National Security Agency and a global spy network called Echelon. This network links spies from Britain, America, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, and it's so secretive that there aren't any official records of its existence. However, rumors of the network started to circulate in the 1970s, and in 2015, the infamous NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden proved that it exists by leaking top-secret documents about its capabilities. According to a study by the European Parliament, Echelon works by indiscriminately intercepting lots of civilian communications before sorting through them to see if they contain anything criminal. This means that Menwith Hill is regularly used to spy on private lives, as Echelon tap into communications that you make at home. Wow. I think some of you should go scrub your search histories, and personally, I'm going to stop drunk dialing my ex at 3 a.m. every Saturday. I didn't realize James Bond was listening in from Menwith Hill. Human testing. From baked beans to blood pudding, the UK is filled with lots of toxic substances. However, the most dangerous matter in Britain is kept at Porton Down, a military research facility in a quaint English village that has dark connections to chemical warfare and human testing. Today, Porton Down's existence is common knowledge, and the facility laboratories are primarily used to study new diseases. However, the site used to be a top-secret base that was used to test biological weapons. From 1916 to 1989, at least 20,000 British servicemen were coerced into volunteering for dangerous human trials on the site. These servicemen were told that they were volunteering for harmless tests, but as soon as they entered Porton Down, they were dosed with dangerous chemicals like mustard gas, nerve agents, and LSD, as the British government attempted to determine which substances make the best weapons of war. Lots of these participants suffered serious illness and injury from the tests, and in 1954 a British aircraftman called Ronald Madison passed away after some deadly sarin nerve agent was poured onto his arm during a trial. Oh man. These tests were strictly confidential, and although the government did tell Madison's father how his son passed away, they warned him that he'd be prosecuted under the Official Secrets Act if he told anybody else what happened. This meant that the human trials remained a secret until 1999, when the British police started to expose Portendown's history of human experimentation as part of an investigation called Operation Antler. They soon uncovered the truth about Ronald, and when they publicly revealed how the aircraftman really passed away, the British Ministry of Defense paid $124,000 in compensation to his living relatives. Today, Portendown has stopped testing on humans, but that doesn't mean they've turned over a new leaf. During the Second World War, scientists from Portendown also tested chemical weapons on animals, and they notably traveled to Grunard Island in Scotland in 1942 to place 80 sheep in crates and douse them with a cloud of anthrax. If you didn't know, anthrax is a seriously dangerous bacterial disease that can live for hundreds of years. None of the sheep survived the experiment, and the soil on Grunard Island showed traces of the bacteria until Portendown scientists finally cleared the area in 1990. However, despite these devastating effects, the experiment was considered a success, and Portendown still conducts brutal experiments on animals to this day. These tests are largely kept hidden from the public, but media reports have suggested that they include exposing monkeys and guinea pigs to anthrax and mustard gas, while others involve strapping explosives to pigs and detonating them to test different types of body armor. Crikey. It's believed that over 100,000 animals have died at the Portendown site since 2009. So although the facility has left human testing in the past, they continue to carry out lethal experiments in the name of science, while hiding on the outskirts of a picturesque village in the English countryside. Before you leave, here's a reminder to grab your plushie ball while you still can. Stock is highly limited. Well, with that disturbing revelation, I think it's time to end our look at secret bases that governments don't want you to know about. Which of those bases terrified you the most? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.